Now, listeners, before we dive into today's show, I just wanted to pick up on the message that Sam and myself put out yesterday across the podcast channels, because this Millstreet preview show was actually recorded last week at a time when the eventing world felt very different to how it feels now. We just wanted to say that actually, if you're not quite ready to listen to this episode now, we understand, and we will be here as and whenever you're ready to come back. Likewise, if you are tuning in, then we're delighted to have you with us. Please do just bear in mind that it was recorded last week. And I think one thing that we are so sure of, and we've seen in evidence this week, is that the eventing community pulls together, particularly when times are tough. There will be so many members of the eventing family in Millstreet this weekend, and we will really see evidence of that. They are a great show. There is a real family feel around it anyway. And so many people will be riding for Georgie this weekend. I'm going to leave you with the episode now. I hope you enjoy it. As I say, we understand however you're feeling, there is no right or wrong, and everybody is going to feel differently. But we thought about whether this show stayed as it was, or whether we re-recorded it, or whether we didn't release it at all. But actually we felt that the best way to manage it was to be transparent, to be honest with you guys, and to let you make the choice. If you do need any extra support, don't forget there are lots of different channels of support out there. So however you're feeling, there is somebody that you can talk to, and channels of support that you can access. We'll pop the link again in the show notes. But for now, I'll leave you with the Millstreet preview show. Listeners, we are back with a preview show. I have missed the preview shows. I'm looking forward to this one because this weekend, one of the biggest Irish events in the calendar. Pretty much most of Ireland and quite a lot of the rest of the eventing community are going to travel en masse to County Cork in Ireland to the Green Glens Arena for Millstreet International at 2024. Rosie, this always feels like such a kind of big festival of eventing, and actually I think testament to the Millstreet team, because this has become like a massive fixture in the calendar now.
It really has, and it shows with some of the entries that they have. Just phenomenal, the people that are coming over. And I think, we've been banging on about Paris a lot, obviously, because it's fast approaching, but it makes it even more exciting because everybody's coming here to pack a punch with their best horses to fight out to who's going to Paris, because every result now means something. There is no place for little slip-ups. This really does mean an awful lot, and it's so exciting to see the likes of Tim Price is coming over with so many horses. Who knows which one he's going to take to Paris, but it adds extra excitement because there is that uncertainty, and you can see, somebody who you didn't expect maybe in your eyes going to Paris come to an event like Millstreet, absolutely smash it, and then suddenly they're right up there for contention. So I just think it's going to be incredible.
And one of the main reasons for that, we should say, is it hosts the Irish leg of the FEI Eventing Nations Cup, which really just kind of, I think, showcases a lot of the European talent in Ireland as well, which is brilliant for the Duggan family, who, Millstreet Horse Trials have been running since 2015. They've held various different places on the calendar. This traditionally was Cassells weekend. They have classes of so many different levels that logistical puzzle of a timetable, whoever creates the Millstreet timetable of those arenas deserves some kind of medal, because it is a very, very well-oiled machine. So we are going to focus, we're going to narrow it down, Rosie. We're going to focus on the 4-Star Nations Cup class, which is presented by Connolly's Red Mills. This is the Connolly's Red Mills show, and it is lovely to be able to bring Red Mills together, and kind of our partnership with Red Mills, which we've had for a good number of years now, together with one of the most premier events in Ireland. Red Mills are massively passionate about Irish eventing, and so it feels every year when we do a show like this, it just feels extra good and an extra bit of satisfaction that actually you're able to support partnerships that they've got with other great events as well. So look, let's get into it, because we have got a very good field. But I would say one thing I found when I was looking at the prediction centre, Rosie, this is wide open, this 4-star short. It could go any which way.
It really could, because I was thinking the same as you. If you look down on win chances on our prediction centre, which you guys can go and look at whenever you like, our current lead at 10% win chance. And if you head down to about just past 10th 4%. That's nothing. Between 10 and 4% is barely anything at all when you're talking on the prediction centre. I really love a competition that's wide open. I think it adds that extra little bit of spice and uncertainty, which we keep saying, but it does. It adds that excitement, and it's anybody's. It's all to play for.
If you're wondering, listeners, where you can go and look at the prediction centre yourselves, we'll link it in the show notes. It's prediction-centre.equiratings.com if you want to go and visit yourself and just take a look at it. I'm going to start with joint top of the prediction centre. Clark Johnstone, Menlo Park, 10% win chance, equal with Felix Etzel, TSF Polar-Tans, who we'll come on to. But I actually wanted to pick up on Clark because the New Zealand team, there has been quite a lot of discussion around the New Zealand team. And Caroline Powell obviously comes off the back of that brilliant badminton result when everybody's kind of saying, and we said it on the review show at Badminton, she's sewn up a ticket to Paris now. I mean, you can't leave the badminton winner at home, can you? But Clark has been quietly plugging away with this and some other horses with some very, very good results. And he cannot be discounted for one of those golden tickets to Paris. And actually, he can't afford to blink, if you like. There's a lot of pressure riding on it, and he wants to go this weekend and prove some form. The horse was top 10 at Marbach in that really competitive 4-star short back in the beginning of May. Also won Kililkey over in Ireland last July, the 4-star long, picked up the qualification there. But I mean, they were 5th here last year. They were 5 at Lignières at the end of last year as well. But they've just had some really, really good results. Top 15 at Aachen. They deserve to be top of the prediction centre. And I kind of feel like, actually, given the last couple of weeks, and, the New Zealand team aren't going to be a million miles away from naming their squad. We'll talk about some of the Price's chances here this weekend. That might give us a bit of an indication as to where Tim and Janelle's kind of path lies. But this is a serious combination, and I actually think they'll be super, super competitive this weekend.
Totally agree. And you can see why he's rated at the top of the prediction centre. Second highest rated horse on the ELO coming into the competition. I mean,
Who's the highest?
Calamaro, Joseph Murphy. They're on a 6.71. Menlo Park, 6.69. Not far behind at all. Just 3 ELO points behind. So seriously, seriously good. In the top 10 on the 6RA and in the top 10 on the jumping. So you can really see why they are rated at the top of the prediction centre. And I think a very, very exciting combination, as you say, for New Zealand. And Felix Etzel that you mentioned, also on a 10% win chance, joint top of the prediction centre there. TSF Polar-Tans is such an exciting horse for Felix. They've had a cracking season last year. If you take a look back at their record, they were only internationally at 3 and 4 star outside the top 3 twice. And those 2 times were 2 16th places, so top 20. One at Le Moulin 4 short was 16th, and Buccalo 4 long, they were 16th. The rest of the time, second or third, took the win at Stragon 4 short last year. I think a very, very exciting combination, and one to look forward to seeing this weekend, because I think they really could throw their hat in the ring.
He's one of those that's not the perhaps most obvious kind of choices for the German team. But actually, I saw this horse at Buccalo, and he was really, really smart. And those 2 rails down cost him dearly. He would have been on the podium without those 2 rails down in the jumping. He can jump a clear round, but he's also pretty liable to a couple of poles here and there. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes out in the jumping phase in Millstreet. It is on a surface. Obviously, Buccalo was as well. If we were coming in talking about the Buccalo, a horse that had finished on the Buccalo podium, I think he would probably be one out in front on the prediction centre, but also bit of a stronger favourite, because he can deliver in the first phase as well. He easily in the early 20s. Interestingly, his 4-star tests tend to be a little bit higher scores than his 3-star tests. So it'll be interesting to watch that first phase for him as to actually how close he can get, whether the changes need to be established. I can't remember from Buccalo last year, if I'm being totally honest. But watch this space. He's really smart. He's absolutely beautiful. I seem to remember raving a lot about him after Buccalo. Just going to pick up actually on Joseph Murphy and Calamaro, because they were one of the combinations that beat Clark Johnstone Menlo Park last year. They finished in 3rd.
We're going to talk about actually the cross-country influence in a second, because I think that's going to play a real part. Joseph Murphy is playing the Paris game, isn't he? You know, very much he has been campaigning Calmaro with one main target in mind, and this will play a big part in their sort of plans. He went well at Kronenberg, actually had 3 down in the show jumping at Kronenberg, which was uncharacteristic for the horse. Kind of put that to bed in Ballantennis when he jumped a really, really nice double clear, finished 4th in the 4-star short there. But we haven't seen a huge amount of him this spring. He's only had those couple of runs, but I mean, let's be honest, he's been top 10 at Aachen on a couple of occasions. He was just outside the top 10 in Harada Pan last year. It feels like, all things being well, Joseph Calmaro, best of the home side. Again, you know, aiming for a big picture run in a few months' time, but I think they'll go very, very well this weekend. I'm already in my head, Rosie. My podium is coming together. We've only talked about 3 horses. Not predictable at all, am I?
You're better than me. You see, I come into these preview shows and I think, okay, I have a rough idea of a podium. And then we start talking, I get to the end and you're like, okay, Rosie, your podium. And I'm like, I don't know. We've talked about so many people that are great. I really don't know what's going to happen.
Pick it up, check it out the window. Who knows?
100%. Joseph is a great shout there, though, Nicole, because you're right, playing that Paris game. But
I just wanted to say, Rosie, just quickly, it's not a self-serving plug, but I was going to say, go back and listen to the show we did with Joseph earlier on in the year, because he's one of those characters he didn't come to top class eventing, didn't come to eventing until later on in life. I think he was in his 20s when he first did, you know, an Eventing Ireland event. He is very quietly spoken, but he is a brilliant character. He has an incredible fitness regime that, quite frankly, sounds terrifying to me. I mean, I can barely walk 5K, let alone run 5K at the minute. But he's just brilliant. And he's got such a strong competitive ethos. We'll link it in the show notes. Go and give it a listen. If you've ever wondered about Joseph Murphy, this is the show to listen to. I absolutely loved it. One of my favourites.
Honestly, I loved Joseph before, but it really did make me fall even more in love with him. He was fantastic.
It also made me realise that Sam Watson's Joseph Murphy impression is so uncannily accurate. It's just like they're the same person.
You're so right.
Maybe they were triplets. Right. Maybe Joseph wasn't just a twin. Maybe Sam Watson, the long lost Murphy triplet. Who knows? Anyway, sorry, Rosie.
That's all right. I want to talk about somebody who also came into eventing a bit later. They were previously a show jumper, but now event. Andrew Barnett coming here with Go Tosca. And it's really exciting to see them because they've actually come from Australia. They've moved over to the UK for, I think it was April time they arrived. And I think it's really cool to see them here. They're here to try and get that Paris place that we keep banging on about. But they're actually got the lowest 6RA out of all our combinations here, a 26.3. They can be so smart in that first phase. The show jumping might be where they have a little weakness, but I think it's really exciting to see a rider coming over from Australia and going for that Paris bid.
Yeah, Andrew is brilliant as a competitor. He's brilliant as a coach. He's actually based over with Chris Bartlett at the Yorkshire Riding Centre. And Chris has really helped him put his plan together for the next few months. Oh, Dee's joined us. Hi, Dee. We're talking about Andrew Barnett. It's been a long time. Hi, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I'll keep going. I'm enjoying it.
We were just talking about Andrew Barnett, who's come over from Australia, based with Chris Bartle, who has kind of helped him with his campaign prep as to where to go, what to do if he's bidding for a Paris ticket. Australia feels like of all the nations, it's probably one of the most wide open. And there's a few big names actually running here this weekend that we'll come on to that kind of, have a bit to prove. He will be going to Lamoulan for the full short in a few weeks' time as well. I agree, Rosie, but I also think it's always really interesting how that sort of first phase score actually then translates over here as well. So look, brilliant to have them over here. Thoroughly nice guy by all accounts. And looking forward to seeing how his Irish campaign gets off this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting. Clark Johnson actually has another one in here, doesn't he?
He has Damasco, which again, Damasco, 7% win chance on the prediction centre. But we just skipped over a man who has, literally the prices we know that prices are a well-oiled machine in so much as when they go to Millstreet, they normally take about 15 horses between them. I mean, it's absolutely mental. Let's talk about Tim's chances here, because he won this 12 months ago with Falco. He has Chio 20. He has Coup de Coeur du Devant. Coup de Coeur du Devant, of course, a Maryland winner from 2022, actually went out to Wiesbaden for the 4-star short there a few weeks ago, won that. So is on very good form. Feels like actually all of a sudden conversation's going to start coming around about, you know, which horse Tim's going to take. Who stands out for you? Who do you like most out of Tim's horses?
It's a tough one, like you say. However, I do think Coup de Coeur du Devant is probably the one that, you know, they're on the same win chance, Chio 20 and Coup de Coeur du Devant. However, I think...
Do you like saying his name as much as I do?
It's quite satisfying now I can say it. When I first read it, I thought, oh my God, here we go. But now I can say it. It is very satisfying. There's another reason, there you go, why I think he is going to be the one.
Dee, can you say it? I feel like we need to get you to say his name.
Oh, I'm well able. I've no problem.
No, I know. I just like
I like it as well. Coup de Coeur du Devant. Coup de Coeur du Devant. Coup de Coeur du Devant. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a lovely... it's one of those beautiful... but I also agree with you, Rosie. It's quite intimidating to look at. Do you remember... sorry for a tangent. We'll come back to the well-oiled machine that is the prices in a moment. Do you remember when Toddy corrected your pronunciation, Nicole? On
it's not Jorge, it's George.
Yeah.
Marcio Cavallo George. And in reality, I actually still have a voice note on my phone from a Bergam party/drinks after competition one year a few years ago. I think it was when the Olympics were on. They'd got like a little bit of a drinks reception for the volunteers or something, and I was chatting to Marcio and I was telling him this story and laughing about how mortified I was that I was corrected by the Sir Mark Todd. And I was like, can you just record it into my phone so I can always just listen back to it? And it's a Cavallo George. It's more of a George rather than a George or a Jorge.
What's your take on names generally? Because I think I've settled into just saying them the way I say them now, rather than maybe.
Nicole's great.
I love a good name. Nothing gives me greater pleasure than like a good, difficult name to pronounce.
Yeah, but
unless it's dumb.
Yeah, you really struggle at my name. But what about saying things in the accent or the place that they're from?
I think you should be authentic, but I think you should use. So if you have a French horse,
why would you say that like a French person? Like, would you call them?
Well, no, but if so, say for Haras du Pin, for example, Haras du Pin is not Haras du Pin.
No, but like.
So you say it.
You say Paris. You don't say Paris.
Yeah.
You don't say Paris.
I think you use a little bit of judgment, but I think you do use, and you want to keep authentic. You don't want to try and pretend to be French, but
I think it's interesting.
It's nice to add a little bit of flair.
So, how would you feel about the Cork accent? Like, do you know how?
Can you give us a Cork accent?
It's hard, Giggs is from Cork, and Denise is from Cork.
I know, so you should be good at this.
Give me a sec now. Let me just get into the flow of it. So it's quite melodic, I would say. It would be your equivalent, I would say, of maybe like the Geordies.
Oh yeah, I love a Geordie accent.
Like obviously the other end of the country. So for us, Cork is the very south. But the very south in your country, they all kind of speak a bit
West
like
Country.
Yeah,
speak a bit like Rosie there.
Somerset.
From Dorset.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
Dorset,
okay.
Yeah.
Whereas this is more, the Cork accent is more, give me a see, you've got to get a few words to get in. So Denise doesn't really have an accent, but Denise's dad, lads, Seamus Daly. Oh my goodness, that is. I'll tell you how you remember it. So you know that film.
Film.
Yeah, do you know? Yeah, all right, Nicole, that was actually my accent. Do you know the one, Juno?
Yes.
With the girl in it. I don't think I ever watched it, but I've heard of it.
Right. Well, the content of the film for this story is not important. If you just add that word Juno at the end of every sentence.
Juno. Do you know?
That's how they speak. So that, right? So like if Denise's mom is talking, she'd be like, well, I had to bring Rose out to get the eggs, you know? And she picked up 5 eggs, but she dropped 3, you know? And you just keep putting Juno at the end of everything, but kind of in a little bit of song, little bit of Juno, and then I think
Quite
you're into
soft.
it's got a little bit of it's definitely a little bit of a song to it. But if you're going to Millstreet, goodness me, you'll have fun in the town itself. It's a real party atmosphere, and I am going back on track in a moment, Nicole, around the prices and the excitement of seeing some of the potential Olympic superstars in Cork, and then later in the summer. But when you're arriving whether you're following it or whether you're actually going, when you arrive in Millstreet, all of the flags of all of the countries are up there. And look, we've done this. How many times have we done the Millstreet preview? So there's only so many different ways you can express
They've
this.
held the Eurovision Song Contest, haven't they?
They have.
That's how I always remember it. Like, of all the places, like.
But you know what they did as well? When you go on 20 years in the same, or whatever it maybe is, 30 years in the same place, when they had, in the first moments of after the Ukraine war started, it's not really a war, more of an attack. Nicole's raising her eyebrows. But Denise always...
We've gone totally off piece here.
Yeah, but Denise gives out to me if you call it a war. She's like, well, not really a war. But anyway, in that moment, they used the same conventions. So yes, the excitement of Eurovision. Yes, the excitement of all the shows. But it's actually a centerpiece of the community there. And in that moment, when no one really knew what to do, they housed, I think, maybe 250 Ukrainians in there. And I think we talked about it on last year's show, and it was a big part of last year, maybe more. And as things settle down, maybe those stories become less emotional. But I think the ease at which the Duggan family delivered that type of community spirit, as much as the excitement, as I say, do you know what I mean? It's something different for me than the Eurovision, which we're all still talking about. Noel C. Duggan delivering the Eurovision and stealing the cable to get Millstreet connected to the internet, and all the great stories that came from the Duggans and the Eurovision and the excitement of Ireland. But equally underlying all of that, there's a family and a centerpiece of the community which supports a local community for many, many years in terms of huge employment and trade within the town. And there's an international element to it, which was about the international community and how in those moments that particular family at that particular venue became a centerpiece for Irish welcoming spirit, and how the Ukrainians have settled in Millstreet. So anyway, back to the sport, but I do think it's that's the backdrop of which that we're talking about all of the sport. It's a very, very special place to everyone here in Ireland.
I was going to say, I don't think it actually will get less emotional. I think it just becomes part of that sort of rich tapestry of history that the event actually now has, and it is kind of growing and building upon every year. And actually, it's those things that kind of give real heart to it. And I think everybody that goes back to Millstreet, the riders vote with their feet for sure, but everybody that goes back feels part of that family, and that Irish kind of small town community feel. It's very special. I remember going for the first time, for an Event Rider Masters leg, and it was the last year that it ran. It was kind of when it was held Blair weekend, and it's a really long wait, or it feels like a really long wait list. It's if you come from Dublin direction, you just keep
we were there together, I remember.
Yeah,
we were there
and it
together.
was really wet. Can you remember how much it had rained?
Did my granny die? Did my granny die that weekend? Wasn't I having to come up and I had to drive away? I remember going up and down to that.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, you were commentating with Janelle Price. She did our cross country with us, I think. I remember standing in a little
it could be.
room
And Sam
somewhere.
was on the podium, and Lucy Jackson won with Superstition. It was just magic weekend. And the one thing that actually stuck out for me that year is that it had been very, very wet. And the time on the cross country, I think, is going to be very influential. Again, that's going to be really interesting to see.
But even
Nobody made it last year.
Last year was dry. Last year was baking hot. I remember we took Rory Gagan to his first ever event last year, and he was walking around in big boots, and he was totally overdressed. Like he was wearing his heavy grey blazer, I think Giggs thought he was going to Ascot, and anyway, he arrived in Millstreet, and I was like, we're going to have to walk the course now. And I remember I met Mikey S, I think, out watering his course, and I was doing like an Instagram live. I turned on Instagram live and I did an interview with Mikey S on the course, and like Giggs was standing there like sweating and like not really knowing what was going on with the sport, with this companies that he was after joining. Like,
didn't he just randomly, not randomly, but like you were sat in the lorry with Andrew Hoy and Steffi and the whole team, and actually afterwards he was like, that's unreal, because obviously he didn't really have any context of who Andrew Hoy was and how many Olympics he'd been to and everything
not
else.
Just Andrew Hoy. I was sitting there with Andrew Hoy and Steffi, but Nelson Pessoa came in.
Like magic.
And I nearly fell over myself. Like, and I don't get starstruck, I don't think, because I don't know who anyone is, so I couldn't. But I knew who Nelson Pessoa was. And when he came in, and like, he's pretty old, Nelson, or Neko as they call him. But I mean, he's pretty old.
How to make friends. You're pretty old.
No, obviously I didn't say that. But I was just observing the situation. And lorries, as you know, even like luxurious lorries like the Hoy's lorry, you still have to like shift around and, like climb up steps and like crouch through doors and all this stuff. Like, oh, get in there, sit up on that cushion there. So like, obviously we were making a big song and dance about Nelson arriving in, and Giggs is now like in the mid, like, when you get stuck in a lorry situation where now like people have joined either side of you.
Once you're in,
you're in, right? Yeah, so he's sitting there. He's got hay fever from kind of June until September. Poor Rory. He's got real hay fever. He has to take tablets for it and everything. So he's got hay fever. He's in the luscious green grass of Millstreet on a baking hot day. He's got Andrew Hoy on one side of him, Nelson Pessoa on the other. And we're talking, and I'm there like a child at Christmas. I think I talked about it probably on last year's show, but I was so excited, and I was like, oh, like falling around myself. Nelson, tell me like the 3 best places you've ever, like, I just started asking him, like, tell me the 3 best places you've ever jumped in your life. What are the best jumping shows you've ever been to, Nelson? I kept making him, I just kept asking him, plying him with questions. It was actually genuinely really special. But obviously then watching poor Rory, sweating and sneezing there beside me, he actually did take it all in. He went from there on to Aachen, so he made up for it when he got to see the other side of it. But yeah, special. Oh, sorry, we were on cross country time. It was a baking hot day there last year, Nicole, and no one made the time, I don't think, today. It was a tough old time test.
Tim, the 4-star, I think Tim was probably one of the quickest. He won, had like 5 point something. Like, there were a few in single digits, but there were a lot in double digits. I'll just double check it actually, because it's an interesting one as well, because actually then you start to say, okay, yeah, Tim won with 5.2 time penalty, still finished sub 30. But actually that was the quickest of the day. There was nobody quicker than 4.4. Sarah Ennis, Grant Sound Jackson, who we all know are properly rapid, they still 4.4, 11 seconds over the time.
Which class were you on? Are you on the
4 short. 4 short.
4 short. And did you do Menlo Park and Clark already?
We've done Menlo Park and
exciting.
Clark. Yeah, very exciting. I was going to ask actually, Chris Burton, Shadow Man, the return, the challenge for an Olympic spot. Yeah. I feel like he's campaigned him very carefully over the last few months. They've got that Olympic qualification.
Was he injured? Was that horse injured or anything? Like,
no, he didn't run in Montelibretti. Was that it, Rosie?
He was entered, or wasn't he?
Yeah, so he was doing his dressage test and they pulled him up halfway through because they felt he wasn't sound. However, Chris did put out a statement that I think he'd had an abscess the week before, which had all cleared up and everything. And he trotted up sound and everything afterwards. I think it was more of a precaution thing. But since then, they've gone on to run steadily. But I think that's more of a box ticking exercise just to make sure they were qualified for Paris, because I think it's go time at Millstreet.
Well, I was
are they qualified? Are they qualified?
They're qualified. Yeah. They've got their 4 shorts and they've got their 4 long. They were 6th in Stragom, but they had 20.4 time penalties. We're not used to seeing Chris Burton go slow. And I actually did a calculation. So for an MER, so a minimum eligibility result, which you need in order to qualify, you can't be more than, I think it's what did I say it was? Minimum
A result.
eligibility.
I don't like picking you up, but I do like, I also love picking you up, as you know. So like,
I know.
Depends on the moment.
You've got to be, I think it's 75. You can't be more than 75 seconds over the time, then you lose that spot. So I mean, he was pushing the time, let's be honest, but intentionally. In my opinion, if he wants to go to the Olympics for Australia with Shadow Man, he has got to come out this weekend and absolutely lay his challenge out there, because otherwise there's other Australian. Yes, because you're not just taking him off the results for slow double clear. He didn't even have a double clear. He had a couple of rails down. Like you've got to go and fight for a place. I am
going to go and look. So who are you sending? Can we pick the Australian team here live on air? We're sending
Shane Rose. Shane Rose. Vasily de Lassos, Andrew Hoy will go. Shane Rose, the absolute bionic man, is going to make the comeback of all comebacks.
But you got to put a question. You got to put an asterisk beside him at the moment in terms of like
he's back on a horse. Back on a horse.
I know, but he's going to be fine. I'm sure he is going to be fine. If he's back on a horse now,
he's still got 2 and a bit months.
Yeah, he's going to be fine. Okay, Shane Rose, who are you taking on him?
Virgil.
Taking Virgil.
I'm taking bloody Virgil.
That was a joke.
Yeah. And I think my last spot, I'm just going to go and double check. I think it's Kevin McNabb.
Okay, things are getting interesting.
It'll be Kevin McNabb.
I'm going to go.
But then I think you start to say, okay, you've got people like Andrew Barnett over here. You've got Sinead Lowings back in Australia. There's Oliver Barrett. There's other combinations that have got good form. Sinead Lowings has run really well.
Bold Venture, yeah. That's the one.
Yeah,
because
had a win at the back end of last season. Won
big
Adelaide
performance at Aachen last year.
Yeah, I just think you're not walking on a team just because you're Chris Burton. You've got to come out here. You've got to deliver. And I think that's the weekend. I'm interested not to see him on the Australian Nations Cup team. They've named their team and he's not on it.
Hype merchant Nicole Brown. There is absolutely
I'm back in business.
No way. There is absolutely no way that Chris Burton and Shadow Man are not going to the Olympics.
What do you think?
Not in
they've got to go out and deliver.
No, they just have to stay sound, stay in the game, don't do anything silly, stay sound.
But they haven't proved they're in the game, if that makes sense. Like they've got the qualification, but they've got your Ross Cantor, Lordship Graffalo have got to stay sound, stay in the game. Chris Burton, Shadow Man, have got to be back in the game first.
See, no. I think they will go, but I'm with Nicole that they've got to fight. I think they will be on that team sheet, but I know it's Chris and I know it's Shadow Man, and separately both got huge number of accolades and results to their name, and together they're fantastic, but we need to see that speed now, and I think we will at Millstreet, and that's why I'm so excited to see them, because I really want to see Chris run this horse competitively, because it's probably felt a little bit like a fish out of water for him to have to run slow cross country as well. That's not natural for him.
Don't think I've ever seen him go so slow, to be honest.
Lads, in another team at another time, I think I would agree with this. This fella is arriving to a not amazingly strong. They're not amazingly strong right now, the Australian team.
Not, no.
Like Virgil is obviously class and is obviously one of the greats, not just of Australia, but of the sport. But Virgil's 19. And I don't think that'll matter for Paris, in that, I think if you can get Virgil there and he's good, and you can get Shane there and he's good, then I think you get a very strong, solid, very important team counting result to take home. Vasily, I think you take a very strong team counting result home with an outside chance of a medal if it was a tough cross-country time. And I don't want to be unkind here, because I really do like that Bold Venture horse, and Kevin McNabb is clearly a top rider. But there was conversation that never happened and should have happened on our podcast, but it was also bloody awkward at the time. Conversation that never happened is that Chris Burton walking out of the sport essentially off the back of that, what we think is a pretty much a fallout over the last Olympics, and Chris Burton leaves the sport. Chris Burton was probably top 2, top 3 biggest names in the sport at the time that he left, dominating the UK, dominating event rider masters, able to deliver speed whenever he needed to, able to deliver incredible dressage tests, very, very good jumper, went on to do show jumping. We're talking about one of the top people in the sport, walking out of the sport. For me, I just don't think he's not coming back if he doesn't have assurances to some degree behind the scenes that like this is all going to be all right. I don't think he goes on a random whim and takes out a lease on Shadow Man. I know he has to go for it, but I don't think he has to prove that much. I think they've said to him, be sound, be available. And I don't mean like be sound, Nicole. I mean like he is sound.
I mean the horse be sound. Yeah. No, I get that.
Be fitting well, be available for selection, and I think we take Chris Burton.
I just don't get me wrong. I agree. He's like he does. In my mind, he doesn't have to do as much as perhaps somebody else would have to do. There's a man that was, top 5 for God's sake in Rio in 2016 at the Olympic Games. Like he is unbelievably competitive. He delivers on the big days. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not denying that at all. What I'm saying is he's not proven that he can run fast with Shadow Man yet. Shadow Man is not a 5-star winner that he's taken the ride on. The horse is proven under that kind of pressure, and there is something to prove. There is something to prove. And I'm just going to say, rewind 12 months, and Sinead Lowings has jetted in from Australia and leads the Australian team to a team ticket to Paris that they did not previously have. She won the 3-star long here in Millstreet 12 months ago with Bold Venture. Admittedly, it's a 3-star. I'm not trying to deny otherwise. But
Bold Venture delivered. Bold Venture, you're right to point it out. Bold Venture is a class horse. And you know what? I would totally accept from you both is that no matter how big the name, we have seen some big names in the sport get left behind. When I say get left behind, I mean, look at William maybe in Paris. Like, he's probably one of the biggest names in the sport, but ultimately you're not really talking about Grafenocht, I don't think, did he make the long list? I don't even know.
No, he's not on the long list. I mean, pre-badminton, you could have argued it, but even then you weren't talking about him.
But you're probably not, is what I mean, is that you need, Shadow Man is obviously a very promising horse and was a big talking horse. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean was a horse that we talked about a lot a couple of years ago. You are matching them up, but I do think you're right to say Bold Venture has shown us a lot already. And if I'm Sinead Lowings listening to this, I'm like, here, get out of town, just giving him a place because of what he did on another horse 3 years ago. He's not been in the sport. He's gone jumping. I'm here. Yeah. I've delivered. I think that, and that's a totally fair argument. So no, what's right is I think you probably do have a big challenge from McNabb and Sinead Lowings. What will happen is my gut feeling is that Shadow Man is going without a win or without a podium.
I'm fascinated by this, actually. Kevin McNabb, let's just talk about him for a second. He's got Willunga, who, again, we haven't seen a huge amount of. Willunga, has previously been top 20 at Poe, doesn't have a 4-star long qualification. So we're perhaps not looking at, there's still time, but we're perhaps not talking necessarily about that horse as being the one he takes. I'm pretty certain, actually, if I go to the entries,
He's a best friend.
I'm sure he's got something in the 4 long that's bidding for actual qualification here this weekend, that he needs the 4 long ticket at Millstreet. I'll just double check it. Let's have a look. You've got Caroline Powell, Kevin McNabb. No, made that up totally. He's not got anything in 4 long. So, what horsepower has he got that's fit and sound? We talked about he went out to Kronenberg at the start of the year. We've been joined by a baby, listeners. I'm just going to put that out there. If you can hear the grunting, it's not me.
And it's not me or Rosie either, just to confirm.
Sorry. Anyway, I'll go on mute for a second. Otherwise you get that down the phone. And it's 8-week-old baby. Nothing more sinister than that. Hey, Benny, this is your podcast debut.
God bless you, Benny. We're deep in nuance here about Australian high performance and selection. Where do you want to take me, Rosie? Because I think if we stay too long here, I'm going to get distracted on Olympic selections. But what do you?
I want to point out a lady who's come over for the US as part of the European Development Squad, Alyssa Phillips and Oscar, with a 6% win chance. the pair are
Four short, back into four short.
Yeah, we're back in the four short. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but still in the four short because we need to do podiums yet, Dee. But I just want to mention her because you're talking of speed, and her and Oscar are rated as the fastest on the top speed percentage ranking for the field, 95%. So if you're looking for someone speedy, they could be the ones. And it's really exciting to have.
Who else is speedy, Rosie, in a second? Sorry.
No, that's all right. So Speedy, well, Ellie Fredericks in Pure Trendsetter is up there. They're second with a 94% TSP. And then you got Molly Duda, Joseph Murphy, Clark Johnson, Menlo Park.
Okay.
That's your top five on the top speed percentage.
What's Molly Duda's dressage like? Or Oscar for Alyssa Phillips, what's their dressage like? Because they can, if you're fast here, you can get a bit of a benefit, I would think, against the prediction center potentially, if it does turn out to be the time test we expect it to be. But you've obviously, if you want to win it, you got to be probably telling me, Rosie, that both of them are, what are you looking at, expected dressage or 6 run averages?
From their last 12 months, an average is 27.7.
Across all levels?
Yeah, that is across all levels.
All right, 27.7.
At this level,
regularly sub 30 at 4
yeah, 30.1 at this level since 2008 is their average.
How do they jump? What's their show jumping like?
Show jumping, where are we? Show jumping. They've got 29% clear rate. They average at 2.9 jumping penalties.
That's fine. 2.9 is somewhere between 0 and 4. So even that, what that's telling me is, how about with 29%? Is that how many rounds are we talking there?
So that was 5 completions, and they've jumped clear twice.
All right.
They've had time penalties though. Interestingly, so they've in their last 5 internationals, they've only had 1 round with jumping penalties. They had 2 down in Virginia, Great Meadow last summer. But other than that, they've had time penalties in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Had time penalties in the jumping of 5 of their last 6.
Slow but careful.
But you can take the odd time penalty in the jumping.
You can take the odd time. You take it over a rail. Yeah. Hey, that's becoming an interesting pick, Rosie, because I think if you can deliver in that zone of dressage, if you can keep it to none or 1, and it sounds like from what you're saying, Nicole, that it's probably closer to none, but maybe with a little bit of time. And as you say, a top TSP, so a top speed percentage, what that is how many combinations. So you take their last 10 runs, then within their last 10 runs, you take their fastest 3. And what you look at is how many people were they faster than on that day. So when you say TSP of 95%, it's kind of like anyone who's familiar with our OBP, opposition beaten percentage. How many people did I take on? How many people did I finish ahead of? What we do for speed, because the difficulty with creating a speed rating is, well, Lordship Scraffalo was very fast around badminton, but ultimately was very fast and still got X amount of time penalties because it was a slow and tough badminton. So what we actually look at when you're trying to create a metric that you can kind of look at across different levels and across different days and across different conditions, taking into account a Blenheim flat track versus a Chatsworth or versus a Millstreet. In this case, what you look at is how many people were they faster than on that day. So in their last however many runs, in their fastest 3 of their last 10 runs, Oscar and Alyssa Phillips are faster than 95% of their opponents. So that's good news for me. A sub 30 average, a 20, a top speed horse, a none or 1, maybe add a few time penalties in jumping. What am I missing here? Do they run out? Why are they 6%? Should they be a bit higher? Or is it only
it's such a tight prediction center, D. Like our joint leaders at the moment, Clark Johnson and Felix Etzel, 10%. So it's just a mega tight class, I'd say.
They had a 20 at Buccolo last year, which they came over as part of the US Nations Cup team in Buccolo, had a 20 there. Still jumped very well on the final day, did a 31.2 dressage, but the run before that, they actually had a full at Plantation Field. So there's probably a couple of little blips going back end of last season that are maybe flagging up here, but they've had 2 wins internationally since then. Rebecca Farm 3-star, last summer. Last summer. Oh, it's Buccolo 2022, beg your pardon. That's why they've had very little. Yeah, so we're going back an extra year. So actually, they've had a bit of time off. They've only completed 2 runs since the start of 23. They've won both of those completed runs, to be fair.
It's interesting because you're right in that, I don't know, I wouldn't have put Oscar up here before looking at Prediction Centre. I probably would have put Coup de Coeur du Devant as favourite, maybe Menlo Park as a really interesting challenger. I probably would have been looking at people like Janelle Price, McLaren, Dan Jocelyn, Blackthorn Cruz, definitely Chris Burton, Shadowman, and probably Joseph Murphy, Calmaro. I probably would have had all 4 of those, expecting them to be pretty much 4 or 5 in the top 5 or 6 in the Prediction Centre. They're all lower, by the way, than Oscar for Alyssa Phillips. I wouldn't have known that. It's a good reminder for me of the Prediction Centre and the power of seeing those numbers. Whether it happens or not, I think it's a good pick, Rosie. I would be saying that's someone I'd be really interested in watching this weekend to go and take on the top boys.
Yeah, I can't wait to see her.
I have got another US combination, if we're sticking with the US for a second, because we all know that I'm a massive Caroline Pamucci fan. She is over in the UK again on that European development tour. She's actually gone down to Pippa Funnels. So when Chatsworth got cancelled, she kind of rerouted a few of the horses. And with the support of the US team, actually said, I'm going back to Pippa. She was based here a couple of years ago for a stint of time, 6 months or so, going back to Pippa's for boot camp, as she put it. And Pippa will have been cracking the whip. And actually, she has King's Especial. She's favourite in the Prediction Centre in the 4 long, which she's the one. But in the 4 short, she's got King's Especial, who, to be honest, is only a 9-year-old, but actually has some really, really smart form. Was top 20 as a young horse in the 6-year-olds at the Lion d'Angers. And then actually, when he was over here, the summer that she spent over here, went very well at Cornbury, had a podium finish there in the 3-star. Since being back in the US, stepped up to 4-star level, actually had a win in Great Meadow last year. Well placed in I'm going to put you on the spot. Mayaca City, Florida. Which event is that? I'm questioning myself for a second. End of March, she was 4th. Question mark over the speed cross country. That's their question to answer this weekend.
Yes.
You couldn't remember the name of the place in Florida either.
I always just say Florida because I remember Lauren Nicholson's horse. Lauren Nicholson's horse, Vermiculus, had been in Florida at the same venue. I think it is just
Oscar won that event with Alyssa Phillips. That's the one we're talking about. Our US listeners will be shouting at their podcast playing machines now.
Mayaca City.
Can I just put Janelle Price and McLaren up there, because actually McLaren went and did the 4-star in Saumur at the end of April, as did a number of the Price horses, to kind of tick that qualification box. Jumped a very solid double clear, 30.6 dressage, very steady cross country round. It was very much about ticking that qualification box, 24 time penalties, but finished inside the top 25. Actually, this is a horse that is very much, proven at the top level, has been top 10 at the World Championships back in Pretoni. Probably not going to discount them completely from the New Zealand team when we start going back to kind of key performances. That's one to watch for them.
I know what it is.
And I just love Janelle Price. Did anybody see the story on Instagram of Tim Price making friends with a squirrel? Did anybody else think, oh my God, what are you doing, Tim? What are you doing? It might bite you.
I know. He was very brave. He just kind of accepted it and was like, oh yeah, there's a squirrel on me, like sat on my head. Like, I don't think I would have been that chill, but
they're filthy little things.
Yeah, they're not the most
bushy tails.
One man I want to mention, a Connolly's Red Mills rider who actually has a very busy weekend at Millstreet. I think he's got 4 in the 4-star short. That's Ian Cassells, and one I'm really excited about, Millridge Athos. I can't wait to see. But I actually caught up with him earlier on, and we'll hear what he has to say about his Millstreet. So I have a man joining me on the show who has a very, very busy Millstreet coming up. Ian Cassells, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Rosie, for having me.
Now, before we get stuck into who you're bringing to Millstreet, can you give us a little bit of an insight into what Millstreet is like as a venue and as a competition?
So Millstreet is the pinnacle of the Irish eventing calendar, with the state-of-art facilities, the permanent stabling, work jumping and dressage on the all-weather surface. And the cross-country is second to none. The decor and the dress of all the fences are out of this world.
It always does look like, as you say, a state-of-the-art venue. The cross-country looks magnificent every single year. And I suppose that's the reason why you guys keep bringing so many horses back, because we mentioned you were busy. I believe you got 5 rides. Is that right at Millstreet?
I actually have 6. So
6?
Very busy week, yes.
Can you give us a little bit of a brief overview of the horses you're bringing? Because, you've got 6 horses, it's a lot, but you've got, is it 4 in the 4-star short as well?
Yes, I have 4 in the Connolly's Red Mills 4-star. They're all fairly experienced horses, so we're very hoping for some competitive results.
And who else have you got other than your 4 in the 4-star?
And then I have 2 younger horses, 2 7-year-olds, one in the 6 and 7-year-old class and one in the 2-star long class.
And what would be your hopes for the weekend? Because, everybody obviously wants to go and win. That's a given. But do you have any particular little goals that you want to tick off whilst you're there?
Obviously, we're all aiming for really good results. But within that, winning isn't always the outcome that we actually want from all the horses, Some horses are there to just be educated, and I have Milridge Athos doing his first 4-star at just an 8-year-old. So he'll just go and hopefully have a really nice experience. And then in the autumn, he might head for Blenheim, and he'd be able to have a little bit more experience then and be a bit more competitive.
Tell us a little bit more about where your journey started with him, because he's such an exciting young horse.
So his owner, Jerry Leahy, bought him as a unbroken 2-year-old. I would have backed him and brought him on since a 4-year-old. He's always been very easy, very uncomplicated. Last year he went to Le Lyon in France, and he just missed out on a top 10 placing. We're having a fence down on the last day. So we all know how competitive the 7-year-olds are in Lyon. So he's really come out then at the start of this season, doing a few intermediates, and feels really good. He ran in an advance there last weekend, so I feel like his preparations are really well for contesting his first 4-star.
He does sound like such an exciting horse for the future. And actually, one of your more experienced horses coming back out, Wooden Farm Jack OD, who we last saw internationally at the Europeans. Has he come out well again this year?
Yes, it's really exciting to have him back at a top class event. He hasn't ran since Europeans, but he has internationally. But he's been had a really good spring, winning in Kokora in intermediate, and he's had another run in Torella. So I think his preparations are really well, and he feels very fit and ready to go.
And has your prep been good going into Millstreet? Because, over in England, the weather's been quite turbulent. Has that been the same over in Ireland, or has your prep all been going okay?
My prep actually started very early. At the start of the year, I went to Chris Bartels and I ran in Osby I was planning to run in Cronenberg, and we rerouted and we went to Burnham Market, and I also went to Semur in France with a few horses. So the year started very early for me, but at home, the few Irish nationals have suffered a little bit with the ground conditions. But as a whole, all of our event organisers have done their best, and unfortunately, the weather is the weather, and we have to try our best and prepare in other ways of our training.
As a rider, you are a very, very busy man. If you go onto the Eventing Ireland Stats Centre and go into the record section, every other one, Ian Cassells, you are a very, very busy man with a lot of success as well. How do you manage so many horses competing?
Yeah, so at home, I don't come from a horsey background, so everything is just me and my groom, Leanne Foster. So we work tremendously hard. We have a yard of 15, 16 horses at the moment. And there's 6 horses competing at 4-star at the moment. So with even just all the competitions and running all the horses, it's all the excess training and traveling and gallops and all the extra bits that come with it is very demanding. But we have a great team behind us, and the horses are all feeling great, and the results are thankfully showing with that, you know.
It's incredible that it's just the two of you with that volume of horses as well. It must take some management.
Yeah, it's 7 days a week, morning to night, a little bit, but we love it. So it when the horses are going well, it really pays off, and
it really does make it feel all worthwhile. And looking forward to the future after Millstreet, obviously we'll see how this weekend goes, but what would be some of your future plans for this year with your team?
I'm heading to Lemoulin in 2 weeks with Masterpoint to run in the 5-star, and also with Shambo Superflex in the 4-star. I would also like to be considered possibly for Akin for the Nations Cup. We also will have a few nice shows in Blenheim and Leon and Buccleuch and Poe, hopefully at the end of the year. So even though we've had a very busy spring, the autumn always seems to be very busy at the end with a few foreign shows. So it's very exciting to look forward to.
It really does sound so exciting. You've got such a great string of horses coming through right the way up through the levels. And we're so grateful for you coming on the show and chatting to us because, like we say, you've got a busy time ahead, lots going on. So thank you so much for coming on, Ian, and best of luck at the weekend.
That's no problem at all. Thank you so much for having me, Rosie.
I love Ian Cassells. He is very quietly spoken, very competitive, very nice chap, and a real talent for Team Ireland. And it's good to see him getting so much strength and depth across his horses. He'll be flying the Red Mills flag very well this weekend, I've no doubt. Okay, podium time.
Terra Nova was the answer to your question.
There we go. Okay, Terra Nova. Thank you very much. Saved me. Well, kind of saved me. I'd probably look. So, saved
Don't
me.
worry, we're all
5 minutes too late.
We're all in the same.
All in it together. Right.
Boat, yeah.
Sammy Birch for Australia has Utopia, who won the 3-star at Cassells Hill. Really, really smart horse for her. And actually is a really nice mare for the future. Right. Come on, team. Podiums. Who tops the podium in the 4-star Nations Cup presented by Connolly's Red Mills? Rosie?
Oh, after all our chat about Australia, I'm going to say he pulls it out the bag and Chris Burton and Shadow Man take the win. Yeah, I'm going to throw it right out there and say they take the win. I'm going to say Tim Price, Coup de Coeur de Divan in second, and Clark Johnson, Menlo Park in third. And can I have Alyssa Phillips and Oscar as my dark horse or not?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Didn't make your podium.
I'm going to say Ellie Fredericks, Pure Trendsetter, as my dark horse.
D?
Super dressage, great fun around the camp. No one loves having Tim Price around more than the riders at Millstreet. But unfortunately, he had to settle for third place with Coup de Coeur de Divan. Interestingly, in what turned out to be an amazing weekend for him, he also took second place with Chio 20. So a really successful weekend for Tim. But I think the star of the show was a young American girl riding a horse called Oscar. I'm going for Alyssa Phillips to take the big one. I think Chatsworth will be disappointed that didn't work out. The horse is fast. They can do good dressage. They can jump. They need to just keep a motor on around that show jumping arena. But yeah, Alyssa Phillips for me and Oscar win this.
I was just going to double check. The last US winner on Irish soil at top level, listeners. I'm going to check it very quickly for you because I don't think we've had one for a little while unless I can remember. We haven't. We have not had an Irish winner at top level, at 4-star level in Ireland, going back to 2008 at least. The closest to it was Kim Severson, Cooley Cross Border, who was second at Millstreet a few years ago.
Nicole, that was excellent.
Thank you very much.
On the spot, stat conference.
With a baby in hand.
Oscar, I was going to call him Oscar because I'm thinking of Alyssa. Benny like sprawled out on your lap. Yeah, that is very impressive now, delivering that. So yeah, it goes back to Kim Severson. So the long wait for raising the stars and stripes in a big Irish international list. Oh my God! Imagine the crack we'll have
In
if
fact,
that national
do
anthem
you
is
want to
playing.
know? I'm just going to say, US winner in Ireland.
Yeah.
There have been a few at different levels. Okay, there have been a few. You've had the likes of Gillian Beale King, Liz Halliday, Grace Taylor has won over in Ireland. So actually, there have been other winners, all levels. So it's just top level.
Okay, yeah. Gillian Beale King won everything there for a couple of years.
Yeah,
there was no shows left.
Yeah, so it's just top level. But I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
This weekend. Yeah, could be this weekend.
I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's going to be this weekend. Right, who's your podium there? Go on, get off the fence.
I am going to get off the fence and I'm going to say that Joseph Murphy Calmaro are going to win.
Speedy.
Yeah, I'm going to say that Clark, Johnstone and Menlo Park will be second.
John Stone.
Yeah.
I think you could just pronounce that with a bit faster.
Johnston.
Yeah.
It's funny.
More
I
like
always called him Clark Johnston, but it's Johnstone. Like it's actually the other.
It's not, is it?
Johnston. I think it is. I'm going to double check it now. I'm sure it is Johnstone.
What we're going to ask is for him to send you a voice note.
Like three names. It's Clark Johnstone.
I'm sure it's Johnstone rather than Johnston.
Oh, well.
If you're listening, Clark, please send us a voice note of how to say your name.
Someone in that camp will be listening. Someone will know. Send us.
I'm going to find out by the end of this. I'll find out because if I'm wrong,
you could task with this.
Really stupid.
Pete could tell. He'd be a man who listens to these he likes this type of challenge and task. Dies Pete.
Pete, if you're listening. Well, Chio 20, I'm sure, is part owned by Guy Brunson and Peter Cattell, who owned Horse Toddy and everybody for years. The Great Leonidas. Okay, so I've said Clark Johnstone.
Clark Johnstone.
John Stone in second. And third, I am going to go for, I'm going to get Andrew Barnett, go Tosca. And my dark horse, I'm going a little bit off piece of my dark horse, but I'm going to say Ryuzu Kitajima for Japan, for Rosa New Mode. The Japanese team obviously have a team now in Tokyo, in Paris. And there is going to be kind of, not handbags at dawn, but there's going to be some real selection kind of criteria, like fight going on. And from memory, Ryuzo was the reserve in Tokyo. He's not going to want to be the reserve this time around. They've had a second chance. They got that team spot after, obviously, China lost their team spot. So just watch.
This is where they lost it as well.
Yeah, 12
they're
months
returning.
ago.
They're returning to the scene where they didn't deliver the goods.
And actually, for Rosa New Mode, I'm trying to think. He didn't run here. Yes, he did. So he finished third here last year in that class. He was best of the Japanese riders, I think.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just because it's quite late in the day now. Feels like we've been here for a long time recording. Have we just done one class of maybe?
But it's presented by Connolly's Redmills, so we said we were going to focus on the 4 shorts. Let's pick up, and we did go off piste on Australia and Millstreet for a while. Let's pick up on the 4 long,
right?
Because Caroline Pamucci is actually favourite in the 4 long with She's the One, 19% chance. It's a much more open field, the 4 long. Janelle Price, Chile Midnight Star is second or joint second with Patrick Whelan and Tutu. Also 16% win chance. And then you've got, the likes of Rose Nesbitt, Ben Way in there. Lovely Ben Way is back at 4-star level with Gun Law. That's brilliant. He'll be back at the 5-star level in the not too distant future. That's exciting.
He's a nice fella, isn't he? He's so polished.
Guy.
I love himself and Matt because they're such a funny little partnership of Matt's kind of, they're kind of like Wuthering Heights, aren't they? Like Matt is Heathcliff. He's kind of rugged and, a man who's like strong hands, I would say. Like he's a strong man, Matt Heath. Whereas Ben is a man who I'd say has soft hands and is
Have
more.
you felt his hands?
No, I'm just generalizing from looking at the two of them. Like, Matt would be like strong man, but Ben would be, the kind of clever,
Suave man.
clean, clever, clean shaven. He wears the little Pied
He's
Piper
always
shoes.
very smart. He's always very smart.
Always smart, well spoken.
Very charming, charismatic.
Very charming. You want to buy a house? I'll sell you a house. But hey, I'm not selling. Yeah, I'm not selling. I'm here. I'm just here to take you out for a nice meal.
Ben is always beautifully put together, very well dressed, as we've said. At badminton, the only person that Benny managed to throw up on was Ben Way. Yeah. And I was like, I've got a baby wipe, Ben. And proceeded to kind of scrub at his shoulder a little bit. It was really awkward.
Yeah, I'd say that'd be expensive. Yeah. Probably, what's that thing? Shuffler. He wears those little... Shuffle.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's got kids. He went.
You bought me the fake version, didn't you? You bought me I have a shuffle. That's not a shuffle. It's...
No, we had some equestrian gilets made. They weren't shuffle. Shuffle, if you're listening and you want to sponsor them, by all means, give us a call. But to be fair, I did give it to you, Dee, and think they were branded with equestrian full sales, and I did give it to you and think this isn't really your style. And you tried it on, and you could almost see the visible shudder, listeners. And he got that gilet off so bloody quick. I was like, yeah, no, it's not really for me.
You know my style.
I'm more of a snapback cap.
Snapback, linen shirts, Scandi chic.
I've never seen you in a linen shirt.
This shirt that you're looking at now, Nicole, is linen.
Is it? This is why we've taken an hour to get to the 4-star long, because we've got, it's been a while. Who stands out for you then? Go on, pick up the 4-star long.
4-star long. Sorry, Rosie or me?
We'll bring sensible kind of discussion back to the table rather than you and I talking about wardrobe choices.
For me, I know Chili's Midnight Star very well. I really like the horse. It was first produced by Jo Rimmer, and then after her accident, handing over to Janelle Price, who has done an absolutely superb job with him. It would be their first time at the 4-star long level. They were at Blenheim last year, finished top 20 there in the 4 short. A really exciting horse coming through. I'm intrigued to see how they cope with the 4-star long level. But I think probably from a little bit of a personal side as well, I'd be delighted if they went well this weekend.
There's no pressure, is there? Jo Rimmer is an excellent, excellent top level event rider in her own right. But if you've got a horse and you've produced a horse up to the top level and then Janelle Price takes it on.
I know.
You're going to look and be like, Christ. Okay. Janelle's excellent.
She really, really is.
Dee, who stands out for you in the 4 long?
I really like how your analysis can move from on the spot, finding, that American stat, to slowly being able to dribble out that Janelle Price is excellent. Janelle Price is really excellent. That's kind of like the thing we'd say on our way home after we've drank about 5 bottles of champagne, Nicole, and we're eating chips in the back of the car. Do you think she's excellent? Yeah, I think she's really excellent. Oh, she is great. The interesting one for me here is Andrew Heffernan with Gideon.
Yeah.
You go back to the Alyssa Phillips concept of delivering great dressage. That interests me. This was a horse who was actually came 6th at this very event at Millstreet, but in the 4-star short here last year, the 27.9 in the first phase. But I think they might have been first or second. They're certain, or maybe third. So I don't know where they were definitely very well placed after the dressage. And it was exciting. It was an interesting time for the Dutch. They're not quite, we talked about Australia not quite being at it. They're not quite at it in the same way as they were a few years back. Oh my God, maybe you go, time does fly, but maybe you go back to Con 2014. They had that podium place, I think, and at the World Games in France 2014. But they've definitely gone through big development spells and ups and downs and that kind of thing. This fella would have been around for all that time, Andrew Heffernan, and has then moved on to manage the Dutch setup at a time, I think, when it's quite a young transitional team, as I say. Mm-hmm. So I think his experience and the role that he plays in taking through the instinct and the intuition that he adds is really important. But then he just brought a horse through and started showing everyone how to do it and doing it again. And I think it's exciting. It's a reminder of, like, he's such a strong cross-country rider. And then suddenly I was watching this horse start delivering big dressage, and I thought, Andrew Heffernan is managing a team and is now going to take, and this is a team that might win, I'd say, an individual and a team medal in the jumping. This is a big old equestrian nation, and they've not been at an eventing level for a while in terms of the big days, the big performances like that. I think Andrew Heffernan is the type of fella who can lead them back to something. I don't think they're quite there yet, but I think Gideon is the horse, or a horse, that will be very, very influential as part of any resurgent Dutch. Your problem is all going to happen. If there's going to be a problem, it's going to be the cross country. And I would worry. Sorry, Nicole, you're coming in here. Do you agree with me?
I was going to say, I agree completely. The big question for them this weekend, they've got to get an Olympic qualification. So the 4-star long, he had a dreadful, sorry, Andy. He had a disappointing, that's a much more friendly way of saying it, disappointing end to the 2023 season, in so much as things didn't go to plan at the Europeans, they didn't go to plan at Burghley, they didn't go to plan at Blenheim.
We had a 20 at them, like it wasn't like a 20
yeah, but you could see the frustration, because he was, like, particularly the Europeans things, obviously, they still picked up their Olympic qualification there. He was a big part of that. But particularly Blenheim, and, after the back of Burghley, Hart Hill Phantom was the horse that he had there, but he needed, and he had Gideon at Blenheim.
What happened at Thorsby?
He needed Olympic qualification. It was wet, so my guess is he just didn't run them on the ground. But he needs Olympic qualification, in theory, for the Dutch team. That opens up a whole different conversation about Dutch selection. We're not going to go there. I've actually got some big news that I'm very excited about. I don't know if we've spoken about on the podcast yet. Have you seen who's making a comeback for the Dutch?
Tim Lips.
Arguably the most successful Dutch rider of all time in the eventing world. Tim Lips has got a horse. He's qualified it at the 4-star short level. He's going to Bramham for the 4-star long.
To qualify to go to Paris.
It's
an amazing old time in an Olympic year.
Yeah.
It's great crack, like all these stuff. You're like, who are you over there jumping in Australia? Come back, Chris Burton. You can have a place. Tim Lips, where have you been? You can have a place.
Tim Lips has been to 3 Olympic Games. He's been to 2 Worlds. He's been to 5 European Championships. Like, making a comeback.
It's an interesting nation. They're not where they were. That's a fact. They're not where they were. They're not a big 6 nation. Probably not dissimilar to Ireland. Let's be honest. They're probably not dissimilar to where we are. We're not where we were. But we still have something there. The last Olympics, Tokyo, Nicole, they actually had those 2 girls who both delivered big PBs in the first phase. They
didn't qualify a team for Tokyo, did they? They just sent 2 individuals.
But I think they both had bad Saturdays. I think they both had bad cross-country days. Like something mental, like they took the wrong course or something, one of them. Like a wild old thing happened. But I remember on the Friday evening, they had delivered really well. They delivered really well in the first phase. But Tim Lips, that's interesting news. Gideon does a 28 dressage here. Mm-hmm. Then he pops around, calm as you like. Because he does have to pop around here, because he's a 15 at Aston Lawals. He's a 20 at the Europeans. He's a 20 at Blenheim. As you say, Nicole, disaster strikes in terms of those 3 particular results across the 2023 season. Then withdraws at Thorsby. Squeaky bum time now. We need to deliver. Gideon is going to need to deliver here. But I think more like Shadow Man. I think they just need to get here. And with the depth in the Netherlands right now, I would say, yeah, we'll get there.
I think he's got to go well this weekend. I think it opens up a whole different conversation. He couldn't not be picked for the Europeans given his form and the depth that they had. But again, it opens up, and he's the coach. It opens up a whole conversation going into there. I've got actually one I want to pick up on the 4 long, because Balliniti Rocket Man, Sam Watson, one of, and I'm not going on data now, I'm going on feel, and Rosie will tell me otherwise, but one of the fastest horses in the field, surely. Inside the time, Ballindennis in the 4-star short, inside the time, Liz Garvin in the 4-star short last year as well. He was 4th in the 3-star here 12 months ago at Millstreet. So Sam, Balliniti Rocket Man, they're my pick.
Curse on Nicole.
Your
No.
feel was correct, Nicole. He is
good.
he has the highest TSP of 90%.
There we go.
90%.
Go
Yeah.
on, go for it, Sammy. Right, podium in the forlong.
Oh gosh.
Okay. You go first this time, Rosie May.
Okay. Rose Nesbitt, e.g. Michelangelo, take the win.
Whoa. Is that my friend Rose Nesbitt, Nicole, from Event Rider Masters?
Yeah. No, different Rose.
Oh, I like
you
you
might
too,
be
Rose.
friends with Rose Nesbitt.
I don't think I am friends with
Different
Rose Nesbitt because I never know anyone's surnames, but great name. Best of luck to Rose Nesbitt.
Caroline Pamuchku, she's the one second. Sam Watson, Balliniti Rocketman third.
I'm going for a win. Sam Watson, Balliniti Rocketman, top the podium in Millstreet. I'm going to say that Ben Way Gunlaw second. Caroline Pamuchku, she's the one third.
No emotion for me. Caroline Pamuchku wins. Janelle Price and Chili Midnight Star is second. And I'll go on then. I'll have a little bit of emotion. I'll put in Sarah Clark and Cassalia S.
That would be lovely. Sarah's had a tough old few months and it would be lovely to see her back at the 4-star level. Step up to the long level for the first time for that horse.
It's definitely a stretch, isn't it, to make them get on the podium?
Watch this space. Look, team, it has been an
do it, Sarah.
pleasure.
You got me. Come on.
You've got this. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. The Connolly's Red Mill special at the Equestrian Eventing Podcast Millstreet preview show. To be fair, Connolly's Red Mills, Carday and Martin for an Equine, massive supporters of Millstreet in general. Not only Connolly's Red Mills presenting the 4-star, for an Equine at the 2-star short format. Carday and Martin are doing the 1-star class as well. There's going to be Carday and Martin best turned out prizes for the Tross Up. And of course, pre-fuel and refuel, all of your Carday and Martin and for an Equine essentials from Donald. How do you say that, Dee? Donald?
I'm really enjoying your back. Like, this is like Nicole when she hits her stride, she's like listing class names, listing products, pre-fuel and refuel on the hill. But then she hits an Irish name. Go on
Donald?
Again.
Donald or Donal.
What do you prefer? Donald what? What's this?
I don't know. He's Donald from Hoofprints Innovations. He'll hook you up, listeners.
Whatever you do, don't call him Donald, or he won't hook you up at all. Yeah, if you call him Donald, he'll look at you and he'll be like, "What is going on?"
Right. On that note,
hoofprints are another important part of the Irish equestrian scene, so you won't miss them if you're there.
Have a chat with Donal. Team, it's been a pleasure. Listeners, it is so good to be back. We will be, of course, with a review show later next week as well. But for now, enjoy Millstreet. You can watch the Nations Cup on Clip My Horse. And I don't know if there's any other live stream. They normally have more live stream as well. So watch this space because you might be able to tune in there too. But for now, go and enjoy Millstreet, listeners. It's going to be a very, very good one. I didn't know what else to say there. There we go. I'm just going to quit while I'm ahead.
Janelle Price is amazing.
Excellent.
Hi, Sarah from Foreign Equine here. When the seasons transition from winter into spring, so too does your horse's coat. Supporting this transition with key supplementation is a must. Supplementing with Kentucky Carron Oil, an emulsified flaxseed oil that is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, will help to support supple skin, reduce flakiness and dander, and add moisture to the skin, which may also help with hair removal when grooming. Using Copper Max Paste, a handy oral syringe containing chelated, bioavailable sources of copper and zinc, will help to avoid a rusty, yellow or brassy coat colour. Using a combination of Kentucky Carron Oil and Copper Max Paste will help to ensure that your horse has healthy skin and a gleaming coat for the months ahead.